Japan has a problem. Hundreds of thousands of young men who lock themselves away in their bedrooms, sometimes not leaving their homes for decades. They're known as hikikomori, people who have completely withdrawn from society.
I was so unhappy. I cried every day, blamed my parents. I felt completely lost.
I felt angry at myself, angry at society, like there was nothing I could do.
It's a condition without a proper medical diagnosis or a standard course of treatment.
Once he smashed the window, another time he punched my wife and broke her ribs.
But there is something that seems to be helping. Ayako is a rental sister. She and Atsuko are part of a specialised group of women available for hire who are getting paid to help Japan's most reclusive young men get out of their bedrooms and back into society. Away from Tokyo's bright lights, tall buildings and busy junctions are the people I've come here to meet. Hikikomori at different stages of a complex recovery. The condition can affect both men and women, but most are young men between 18 and 35. And this is not just a handful of people. It's estimated that there are about 500,000 people living as hikikomori in Japan. But because there can be a lot of shame associated with having a hikikomori child, many families keep the condition a secret and struggle to get proper help. That's where the rental sisters come in. The idea was dreamed up by an organisation called New Start, and it seems to be working. These young women don't have any formal medical qualifications, but families pay about 100,000 yen a month for weekly, hour-long visits. That's just under $900. Their job is to try to coax the hikikomori out of isolation and back into regular life. So what does it take to be a rental sister? And are they actually helping to solve the problem?
There is no technique. I don't pretend. I just try to connect with them on their level.
Ayako has been a rental sister for over a decade. For the last 6 months, she's been working with a recovering hikikomori in his late 20s called Kenta. His parents pay for Ayako to visit him every 2 weeks. She took me along to one of her sessions in the suburbs of Tokyo. Kenta has now managed to move out of home, but still can't hold down a job. Ayako told me that it can sometimes take between 6 months and 2 years to build trust and start the recovery process.
I got bullied at school because people thought I had a high-pitched voice and I was friends with all the girls in my class. They would say, "Are you a boy or a girl?"
How did you feel when you were hikikomori?
I was taking medicine. I was so unhappy. I cried every day, blamed my parents. I felt completely lost. There was one time I even got violent and my parents had to call the police. I was basically nocturnal. I would stay up all night playing video games and then sleep during the day until the late afternoon.
The reason why people become hikikomori is complex and not well understood. Sometimes, like Kenta's case, the social withdrawal can be caused by bullying or a traumatic event. It can also stem from depression, too much pressure from parents, or just failure to hold down a job or degree. Every case is different. How do you feel like having a rental sister has changed you?
I enjoy seeing my rental sister very much. We go out to eat and then go out together. And I feel like she supports me. It makes so much difference to how I feel compared with just being alone. And she cheers me up.
Ayako told me later that it's actually quite rare for the client to have fun with the rental sister and enjoy seeing them. But she's hoping that soon Kenta won't need her anymore.
The time when I stop seeing Ayako will be, I'll miss her if I cannot see her. But when I can work properly and become stable, What people misunderstand is that our society is very tough on the weak.
I asked Ayako what kind of approach she takes when working with young men like Kenta.
If I try to be something fake, the patients will realize that. Being myself, just the way I am. Even if I'm a bit late or tired, the client will feel, it's okay to be like that. It will be difficult if you're not patient or get disappointed if the client will not respond to you. You have to remember that this is just a job.
But for the families with hikikomori children, the condition can have a huge impact. I met a father, we'll call him Mr. Haruto, whose son became withdrawn as a teenager and 2 decades later still barely leaves his room.
I don't know how to handle this. It feels like there are no options. Even after the boy's mother died, he didn't change. So I don't foresee any hopes for the future.
So why is your son in his room?
I don't know the reason. One day, he just stopped going to school. At first, he would go out sometimes to buy comic books, and then he just stopped going out altogether. We didn't know what to do. There were 2 or 3 times we had to call the police because my son got violent. Once he smashed the window, another time he punched my wife and broke her ribs.
Knowing where to get treatment can be hard, especially if the hikikomori refuses to leave his room to visit a doctor. Mr. Haruto decided that New Start's rental sisters seemed worth a try.
I thought perhaps they could talk to my son because it was clear that family members couldn't do anything anymore.
An experienced rental sister called Atsuko started to visit.
Today, I will visit the hikikomori in his home. So far, I visited about 10 or 15 times, but he never comes out of his room. So I have to talk to him through the door.
Apparently that's quite a common reaction in the early stages. Even though the young man refuses to talk to her, she still writes him long letters that she pushes underneath the door.
I try not to make them feel like someone is looking down on them or trying to control them. I'm not trying to be a teacher, but I try to interact with them like an older sister or a neighbor. Someone more casual who worries about them and is there for them as a gentle presence.
Most hikikomori aren't violent, but Atsuko always has to be on her guard for any unpredictable behaviour.
When I do my visit, there are many people who are calm and don't come out of the bedroom, but some hikikomori get upset or violent when a stranger comes into their space. One time when I was speaking to a boy, he physically attacked me, grabbing me by the throat. I was very scared. I called the police right away. I didn't want to go back there.
Rental sisters like Atsuko aren't mental health counsellors and don't have any formal qualifications. They get some training from New Start, but that's about it. Their mission is to help the hikikomori be okay with who they are and how they feel, and to make that work for them in a real-world setting. But they will bring in doctors if they feel like they need to. I wanted to find out more about the hikikomori condition and why it's such a phenomenon in Japan. I got in touch with the man who wrote the defining book on the subject, Professor and psychologist Tomaki Saito.
This type of condition is very, very common in hikikomori. In Japan, there are less than 10,000 homeless people. Instead, there are about 1 million hikikomori, I think. This is a Japanese style of social exclusion.
Professor Saito thinks the problem is far more widespread than government numbers suggest. And it's also becoming an issue in other countries like the US, UK, Italy and South Korea, where young men might feel an overwhelming pressure to succeed financially.
Many people think about hikikomori that they are very lazy, and other people think about hikikomori is a very dangerous and precondition of a criminal. But that is not true, statistically not true.
Living independently is seen to be a key part of the recovery process. Some hikikomori might feel like they're ready to leave their bedrooms, but they aren't quite stable enough to reintegrate back into society. And that's where the New Start dormitory comes in. It's kind of a halfway house for recovering hikikomori. They pay rent to live there and must do some part-time work and charity volunteering, which is organised by New Start. They have to give up their phones and are only allowed to watch TV in the communal sitting room. No computer games allowed. Over the past 18 years, New Start has had about 2,000 people live in the dormitory for more than a year. 80% of those have now re-established themselves independently. One of those former residents is Ikwo, who's now in his mid-30s. His stint in the New Start dormitory completely turned his life around.
When I was hikikomori, I was totally alone in my room and just played video games or watched TV all the time. I felt angry at myself, angry at society. I felt completely hopeless, like there was nothing I could do. I came to New Start because I didn't want to stay at my parents' house. I didn't think much about it. I just wanted to be away from my parents.
While staying in the dormitory, he had to do some volunteering at the New Start offices. And it was there that he met his future wife, Ayako, the rental sister. They began speaking every day, and she convinced him to start some part-time work as a rental brother. What made you fall in love with each other?
I had a strong feeling of camaraderie towards him as a rental brother. We took a walking trip together in the mountains near Tokyo, where we could just talk and be ourselves.
After we got married, the staff and residents from New Start held a celebration for us. I didn't propose to her properly until then, so there at the party, in front of everybody, I proposed and asked her to please smile forever next to me.
Despite the difficulties and stigma that hikikomori face, Ayako said that living your life more slowly and thoughtfully can also have many positives.
I married someone who used to be withdrawn, so I want to say this out loud. People who have spent time being withdrawn also have very good, important qualities. Okay, so they don't want to work, but they often see society in a fairer way and have a very gentle view of women.
The hikikomori condition is still not well documented, and the Japanese government is trying to get a clearer picture of the situation. To date, New Start's rental sisters have helped about 3,000 people get out of their rooms and back into society. But many of Japan's hikikomori still remain isolated.